And I'm the Herbalist, and I'm back today with another episode of Secrets of Herbal Healing. It's a bit of a sticky subject today, a bit of a tricky one that we don't often like to talk about. It's constipation. And surprisingly, a large number of us suffer with constipation, up to 25% of us. And it's one of those things that can be on and off, but sometimes it can be chronic. And that's when it can cause a real health problem. So today what I'm going to talk about is the causes, the different types of constipation, the symptoms you might get, but also the foods and the herbs and the lifestyle things you can do to get everything running smoothly again. So that's the goal today. Let's get up and running. Talk soon. So as usual, I'm going to share my screen and share some research on the subject. And if you want to follow along, there's a QR code in the top corner there, and you'll see that you can scan that and join on the page. And also if you want to dig into the research behind the scenes. So my goal is to simplify things that are otherwise complex and make them easy for you so that you can apply them in your daily life. And interestingly, constipation or bowel regularity is one of those things that we need to apply daily in our daily lives. So like I was saying, it's between 2 and 27%, but it's probably a growing number in Western countries in particular, are people that suffer with irregular bowel. And so it's interesting, what we think is a normal bowel movement might not be normal. And in fact, some of us go 2 or 3 or 4 times a day, while others might go once a week. So there's quite a huge variation. What is actually healthy and what is actually healthy for us? That's really quite a personal thing. Like, it's not exactly the same for everybody. It doesn't have to be the same. So let's look at that. What is constipation? So there's a way of defining constipation, which I'll get to in a minute, which is a sort of a standard that's used around the world. But there's many differences in what we perceive as normal. But this is generally what you would call constipation. If you're going less than 3 times a week, roughly every other day, if you're going that often, it's probably not chronically constipated. You've probably got what's called a sluggish bowel. But if you're going less than every other day, if you're going every 3 days or 4 days, you're getting into chronic constipation, if that's going on for months on end. So how it's actually defined is using what's called the Rome 3 criteria. And there's some examples of what that the criteria contains. And it's straining about a quarter of the time. So in other words, you don't just sit down and it's nice and easy and it just happens by itself. You've actually got to put some effort into it. Even if that's happening a quarter of the time, then that's pointing towards chronic constipation. Lumpy or hard stools. So this means things aren't soft, or sort of there's not a lot of liquid content to them, not wet. So if they're dry or hard, lumpy, 25% of the time. So this is not all the time. A sensation of things haven't been complete. So this is a really interesting subject to talk about, isn't it? I mean, you don't have these conversations very often. So if you feel like your bowel motions haven't completely evacuated everything that's in your bowel, that's what it comes down to. That should feel like that's happened, like there's nothing left at the end of the bowel motion. So if you feel like that's happening up to a quarter of the time, at least a quarter of the time, then there's possibly a problem there. Sensation of blockage, so that's a real problem. If you ever get that, if you just feel like it's blocked and it's just not going to move, and then you've got to apply, the straining and then that sort of thing, and then you might get hard, dry lumps. That's a real constipation problem. And if you've got to use manual maneuvers, this is probably the most drastic thing, when you've actually got to use something like a finger, or you've got to apply some kind of pelvic massage or whatever to get things moving. So if that happens 25% of the time, and if you look at these, they're all 25%, but some of these might happen at the same time. So you might get 3 or 4 of these symptoms all at once. But that's general guideline. And if you're getting some of these symptoms, 1 or 2 of these symptoms every 3 or 4 times you go to the toilet, then you probably have a chronic constipation issue. So there are different types, and they're caused by different things. So the most common one is the first one here. It's called functional constipation, and that's related to diet and lifestyle. So that is by far the most common. Then you've got constipation, which is caused by disease. For example, people with Parkinson's disease or some immobility problem will have quite often constipation related to their health condition. And then there's drug-induced with pharmaceuticals. So this can happen if you're taking a lot of painkillers, steroids, or, for example, even iron pills can cause constipation. So various pharmaceuticals can cause constipation. So you've got to look out for that, because they'll, in various ways, they'll immobilize the bowel or dehydrate the system, the membrane. So that can cause constipation. There's other complications you can get with constipation. Obviously, a lot of us will experience indigestion, bloating, gas, digestive discomfort, which indicates something is not quite right in the digestive system. That can be related to having constipation or a sluggish bowel. Headaches, hair loss, restlessness, confusion. But it's quite disturbing, isn't it? If things aren't working regularly, it's a bit like a car. If things aren't running smoothly, you notice it. It disrupts your whole performance in your whole daily life. So it's one of these things we want to resolve. So let's look at some of the causes. So dehydration. So insufficient water intake. A portion of the bowel movement is water. And so if you don't have enough water, the bowels are going to dehydrate, and that can cause a problem. So it's important to make sure you're getting plenty of water if you are suffering dehydration. And also, it's important to have salt in your diet so that you hold water in your body. If you're exercising, if you're running, like this example here, and you feel exhausted, you're sweating a lot, really, really important to get lots of water and to get electrolyte replacement and salt into your body. Gluten. So this is definitely connected with constipation. We do find a lot of people that do our body cleanse programs, they eliminate the gluten and the processed wheat products, and that has a huge impact. And you notice it when you put that back into your diet. Everything slows down and it starts to sort of back up again. So it's important not to have a lot of flour containing products, because the principle here is, when you think about it, the gluten in flour is like glue. It's designed to bind everything together. And so if you bind things together in the body, you're obviously going to find that you get what's called, bound up. And that's part of what constipation is getting bound up internally. So eggs fall into this category too, because they also used as a binding agent. So think of it this way: anything that's got binding agents in it, or that's used, food products that are being held together by something, and that sort of glue substance or that glue effect is going to bind up your bowels. So there's a direct link to that. Here's another one: red meat. So red meat tends to digest slower than white meat. So fish and chicken don't seem to be responsible for causing this problem, but the red meat, so the beef, the lamb, even the pork, they will sit in your stomach for quite a long time, and they can sit there for 10 to 14 hours. If you've got a lack of other substances to help digest that meat, like if you're just having a lot of meat and bread together, if you're having, say, meat sandwiches all the time, then you will find that they struggle to digest and they'll bind up in your gut. Meat can take up to 5 days to get through your digestive system. And that's why when you look at the animal kingdom and you think about, carnivores like cats, dogs, they sleep a lot. They have a huge feast and then they'll laze around for days. And they have a far better ability to digest meat than humans, because they have a much, much higher acid level for digesting meat in their guts. So that can really sit in your system for a long time. Meat is low in fiber. It's a huge digestive load, protein load, and it also doesn't have any sort of probiotic, prebiotic components or enzymes or anything like that that supports digestion. So we're really poorly designed to digest red meat. So a good one to know. So some of the things we can use to combat this So enzymes, we just spoke about, are responsible for breaking down the protein in the body. So there's a lot of foods that contain enzymes, and there's a good example in the picture there. Interestingly, bananas contain enzymes for digestion, avocados, but the fruits, the pineapple, the pawpaw, the mangoes, really, really high in enzymes. So any kind of fresh, colorful fruits are going to help your digestion a lot and improve your elimination. They got the enzymes, they got the fiber, they got the water content, all those things we need to get the bowels moving. Honey, and of course, yogurt. Another thing we can do is have more fiber. So you've got to be careful not to have a whole lot of fiber, too much fiber, because that can also bind up if you overdose. But getting fiber in food naturally, so fresh fruits and vegetables, that holds water in your bowels, and a lot of it passes through without being absorbed. So you get this nice liquid, gel-like, slippery substance going through your bowels, and that enables everything to move really nice and smoothly. So there's some examples there. Obviously, nuts and grains and seeds and legumes all have fiber, but I highly suggest getting fiber with fresh foods. So there you can see celery, carrots, cucumbers. Most vegetables are high in fiber, and leafy greens are especially high in fiber too. Another thing we can do is spice it up. So to speed up digestion and elimination, I don't know if you've ever, you more than likely have had a hot curry or a hot chili at some point in your life. I recommend doing that regularly. So having a hot curry or a hot chili a couple of times a week is really good. And the hotter, the better as far as helping bowels and helping elimination. So if you have enough chili, you'll notice that you can get the chili afterburn effect as it's leaving the body. And that's a really good sign that that chili has gone right through your gut. It's also hugely anti-inflammatory, knocks any bacteria and parasites in the body too. So it's a good idea to have lots and lots of herbs and spices in your food. So it's a bit of a motivator to get into some of their Asian food. Probiotics, really important. Obviously, gut microbiome is central to the whole digestive function, but they've also found probiotics can increase the bowel movements. So there's a study here where they had patients using Lactobacillus reuteri, which is the probiotic that I recommend mostly, and they started with a baseline average of 2.8 bowel movements per week, and they ended up with 5.4 per week. So they virtually doubled their bowel motions just by using probiotics alone, not really making any other substantial changes. And there's the Lactobacillus reuteri that we recommend, so you can get that there. Another thing, there are some herbs. So the herbs, they're high in fiber, the soluble fiber, so your psyllium husk, which has the same effect as the fiber we talked about earlier. It's mucilaginous. It moisturizes the bowel movements and bulks them up and helps everything slip through the body quickly. And then we've got cascara bark. So cascara contains a product called aloe amodin, which is also an aloe vera, by the way. So aloe vera is another really good herb to use for that substance. Increases the propulsion and acceleration. So yeah, if you have too much cascara, that can give you sort of like drastic propulsion and accelerated transit. So you can end up sort of splattering a little bit. But yeah, great picture, isn't it? So we use that in the herbal program, but you don't overdose with cascara. You can use it long term, and it becomes a bit of a bowel tonic. So you can use these herbs over the long term in a smaller dosage, not in a massive dosage. With our programs, we do a big dosage for a couple of weeks to clear everything out and get everything working really well. Wormwood, which is used as an anti-parasitic, has also sort of indirect laxative effects because it's got bitters, digestive support, liver support, helps enzyme production. So it's a really good, any bitter herbs will help your whole digestive system to regulate. So yeah, there's a whole range of those. Won't go into that too much. Black walnut. So black walnut is used primarily as an anti-parasitic, but because it's purgative, it helps get parasites out of the body. It's also known to alleviate constipation. These are great herbs. Turkish rhubarb, any rhubarb, in fact, you can just eat rhubarb And another food I didn't mention before, kiwi fruit, prunes. There's a couple of foods that you can include just in your regular diet, which are known to help, as good laxative effects. But rhubarb, we use this as a herbal medicine as well. You can use it as a food. It's got a substance in it called rain amodin as well, which is very, very similar to the aloe amodin. So it just gets things in motion, if you like. Slippery elm. So slippery elm is a gut healer. It's a mucilaginous substance as well. So it helps to create a gel-like slippery effect on the gut. Also very good for, for toddlers and babies. It helps to heal the gut. It helps to regulate the bowels. And here we've got the Colonade. This is one of our products that's got a lot of those herbs in it. A lot of people use Colonade on a regular basis just by taking a couple of capsules a day. So the small bottle lasts a couple of months, and it's got all those herbs in it together. So if you've had a chronic or sluggish system, you can use the foods and the herbs together to get a really nice sort of soft and regular bowel motion going. And it could take a little while in the beginning. It could take 2 or 3 weeks to get everything working nicely again, but generally it works quite well. And then we have the more comprehensive herbal combination. So the comprehensive herbal detox and body cleanse, which contains 24 herbs, which all work together on the digestive system. And so you can, if you want to have a look on this page, you can dig a little bit deeper and go into some more of that information. But yeah, really, that's pretty much it for me as far as the page goes. And I think, it's one of those things that can affect you emotionally. And emotions can affect the gut, and the gut can affect the emotions. So it's a bit of I guess a two-edged sword. Constipation could be the cause of some kind of stress or grief or emotional discomfort. And that can affect the brain, of course, through the gut-brain axis. So mental stress can be related to that as well, and vice versa. So if you're stressed all the time, if you're in constant stressful situations, your gut can actually be affected by that, and it can almost like switch off, and you'll really struggle to digest food and to eliminate properly. So those things are closely connected. So if you want to maybe have a bit more of a dig into that. So I hope that's been helpful today, and we'll catch up again next week. We're going to talk about a couple of more deeper topics on gut health, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, and these things are coming up in the next few weeks. So I look forward to talking to you soon.